Who doesn't love a good ghost story, especially in the month of October with Halloween approaching? In today's video, I discuss a couple of interesting encounters surrounding a paranormal sighting that has been shared around the world in many different instances, but all sharing a key detail. That being, all the sightings involve a ghostly hitchhiker. Welcome to my channel, Weird Wild Stories. My name is Chrissy, and I typically discuss things that are dark, mysterious, and creepy. If that interests you, then go ahead and subscribe or follow me. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, leave me a comment, or share this video with a friend. That really helps out a small channel like mine. Okay, now let's get into our first story. In 1979, Roy Fulton had an encounter that would forever change how he saw the world, and, potentially, how we understand urban legends. Fulton, like many others before him, claimed to have experienced something nearly impossible, a ride with a ghostly hitchhiker. But this isn't just another run-of-the-mill ghost story. His experience was different. You see, for centuries, cultures across the globe have shared variations of the same tale. It goes something like this. A driver picks up a stranger, typically on a lonely road at night. Everything seems fine until the stranger either disappears without a trace or the driver later learns the chilling truth. This passenger was actually a ghost trying to return home. For many, these legends provide a sense of closure, answering questions about what happens to the souls of those who die far from their loved ones. It's a universal story meant to provide comfort to the living. But Roy Fulton's story didn't follow that script. He didn't get the closure you'd expect from a ghost tale. When Fulton picked up a lone hitchhiker one dark evening in Dunstable, something felt off, but there was no sudden disappearance, no eerie revelation. Confused and unsettled, he went to the Dunstable police, seeking answers. Was this man a ghost? Was he hallucinating? He had no idea. And that's what makes this case so fascinating. It lacked the neatly tied-up ending that most ghost stories offer. If we entertain the idea that ghostly hitchhikers are real, it makes sense that most drivers would never know who or what they had encountered. In many cases, the legend probably evolved as people added explanations to the story, trying to make sense of the bizarre. But Fulton's experience? There was no explanation. No one told him he had picked up a ghost, and that's why this story stands out. But here's where it gets even stranger. Roy Fulton isn't the only one to report such an encounter. In 2015, several taxi drivers in Japan claimed to have picked up passengers who vanished into thin air. These incidents took place after the devastating 2011 tsunami, leading many to believe these were the spirits of people who had perished in the disaster, still trying to make their way home. In 2014, a sociology student named Yuka Kudo from Tohoku Gakuen University set out to do what no one else had dared. She began interviewing taxi drivers in the small town of Ishinomaki, Japan, an area devastated by the massive 2011 tsunami. Her goal? To uncover any strange or unusual experiences these drivers might have encountered in the years following the disaster. Most drivers dismissed her questions, some even got angry, but 7 drivers had stories that would shake her to the core. One driver, a man in his 50s, recounted an eerie encounter from the summer of 2011. He was parked at Ishinomaki Station when a woman in her 30s wearing a heavy winter coat in the middle of summer climbed into the back seat. She asked to be driven to the Minamihama district, a neighborhood almost completely wiped out by the tsunami. The driver hesitated, reminding her that the area was nearly deserted, but her response made his blood run cold. In a trembling voice, she asked, "Have I died?" The driver quickly turned to look at her, but when he did, she was gone. No door had opened. She had simply vanished. Another driver recalled picking up a young man in his 20s. The passenger didn't speak, just pointed straight ahead, guiding the driver toward a mountain called Hioriyama. When the driver asked multiple times for a destination, the young man finally muttered the name of the mountain. The driver drove in silence, but when he arrived at the destination, the back seat was empty. The man had disappeared, leaving no trace behind. All 7 drivers who shared their stories with Kudo were convinced they had picked up real living passengers. They even started their taxi meters, an important detail, because once the meter starts, the driver has to be paid either by the passenger or from their own pocket. None of these drivers sought attention or tried to profit from their stories. They had no reason to lie. In fact, Kudo speculated that many more drivers may have had similar experiences but were too afraid or too unsettled to talk about them. What's even more unsettling is the pattern Kudo noticed. Every driver described their passengers as young, likely victims of the tsunami who had perished tragically and suddenly. Kudo believed these restless spirits, unable to accept their fate, were using taxis as a medium to communicate, hoping to find some closure. But what struck Kudo most was that the drivers weren't afraid. They didn't see these encounters as frightening. Instead, they felt a deep sense of reverence, perhaps understanding the pain these spirits were carrying, as many had lost friends and family in the disaster. Now, this phenomenon might remind you of a familiar urban legend, the phantom hitchhiker. In many cultures, there are stories of ghostly passengers picked up by unsuspecting drivers, only to vanish without a trace. But Kudo's research was different. These weren't just ghost stories passed down from generation to generation. These were real, first-hand accounts from people who had nothing to gain by telling them. And that leaves us with the unsettling question. Did these drivers simply fall victim to hallucinations, perhaps triggered by grief or trauma? Or did they truly experience something supernatural? What we do know is that the ghostly hitchhikers of Ishinomaki aren't an isolated case. The question remains, are these just stories? Or is something far more chilling happening on our roads late at night? You decide. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the other mysterious and creepy videos available on my channel. Until next time, stay safe, but also stay curious.